Hey YouTube, coming at you with a deck profile. This is my Watt deck that I decided to make for the rest of the format. Um, yeah, I'm sorry about my voice in advance. I was at a Mastodon concert the Saturday of, so my voice hasn't quite recovered from it yet. Um, this deck is, I can only describe it as trolling. It works way too well, and it's very, very effective at doing one thing, and that's pissing your opponent off. Even if they win, they're only going to win by 1,000 life points and wonder how the hell the Watt player got them down so much, or how the hell the Watt player even won. I'll just start off with the deck profile. 3 Watt Cobras. Alright. This is your Stratos on steroids. Each time it does direct damage, and it can attack directly, of course. Each time it does direct damage to your opponent, you can add 1 Watt monster from your deck to your hand. So, that's pretty amazing. 2 Watt Pheasants. Again, this is another, like, really, really good card for 2 reasons. 1, it can attack directly, so it's extra damage. And 2, let's say your opponent has, like, a Ryo on the field, or, just for example, Fossil Dyna, just something that will give you a problem. You can just remove it from play after it does damage. Like, a popular scenario I've seen is when someone, like, summons Ryo against me, and I get out my Watt Pheasant, and I have a Watt Cobra already on the field, so I attack with Watt Pheasant to remove the Ryo, and then I attack with Watt Cobra to get my search, and it's like Ryo is never even really there. So there's a lot of effective plays you can do with Watt Pheasant, and it's a necessity just because it can attack directly. 2 Watt Giraffes pretty much negates effects once it actually does damage. What's great about this card is they can't Gores against you because of it. They can't Trigodia. Um, they can't do a lot of things, and they can't do things during main phase 2 or your end phase. So if you set a lot and then they try to MST during a phase, they can't do that when Watt Giraffe does a direct attack. I'm only running 2 of Watt Giraffe and Watt Pheasant because I feel like the deck's more consistent that way. You can add a lot more support for other things. You got your Battle Searcher on steroids. Watt Dragonfly is amazing because if it gets destroyed by battle or card effect, your opponent's card effect, though, I'll explain that later. You get to summon a Watt monster from your deck. Pretty fantastic, honestly. Because if it's set in a Dark Hole or something like that, it gets its effect. If they use Catastor, it still gets its effect. Take note that it only gets destroyed. It only gets effective if it's destroyed by your opponent's card effects, though. So, for example, if you torrential your field while this is on the field, or you dark hole, you will not be able to search out another Watt monster. Same thing goes if you like reborn it with Call after they've MST'd. It doesn't work like that. I wish it did. That'd be ridiculous, but yeah. What can you say? 3 Watt Hoppers. Card's amazing. Pretty much your opponent cannot select another face-up Watt monster's attack target or target them with effects. Basically having 2 of these on the field makes it nearly impossible for your opponent to win until they draw into a Luxac card like Dark Hole or go for Black Rose, which you will probably have an option to anyway by that time. Watt Hopper also prevents them from attacking, which is funny because you can just sit there with Watt Cobra and just keep going plus no matter what they do. And there's a lot of ways to get this lockdown out, so it's not like it's super inconsistent. And you'll get it out most of the time, if not every time. And you are almost guaranteed to win if you have this up. They can't use Bryanak, they can't affect Veiler, your Cobra. The only way to really win is to mass clear the field or activate Skill Drain. Or Trishula, because Trishula doesn't technically target. But then again, there's a lot of options against Trishula you should have. Rounding out the Watt lineup is Watt Beta, which is your 2-star tuner. Pretty much the only reason she's in here is basically lets me go for Watt Chimera, which is ridiculous. And Watt Lemur is pretty much just there for extra protection. His effect is funny because it gives me that extra layer of just not having your opponent attack. If they run into it, they pretty much don't have a battle phase next turn. So you can get it out with Watt Dragonfly and let them run into it, and then next turn you can summon, and then when they try to attack, they realize about Watt Lemur. Seems like most people lose this deck because they don't know how to face it at all. It's just completely out of the blue. Another thing about Watt Bait is the fact that it's searchable, and even though its effect is mediocre, it can sometimes be targeted, and obviously you don't want to use it against Dark World, because then they get to discard whatever card they want from their hand. Um, got Honest and Gores. Honest is in for obvious reasons. Gores is because I don't like to lose when I get, like, field cleared. He saved my ass so many times, so it's kind of necessity, this format. And then Double Effect Veiler, which is completely necessary in this deck, even with Watt Cancel, because you just want to negate the effect. You don't want them to have that additional, Trishul play, and it just has great synergy with the deck overall, because with another card in here, it lets me go for like stuff like Trishula. 3-Potted Duality, yes, that's a gold Sark, but it's just a proxy for now. I'll find my other eventually. I think I let a friend borrow it, and I just need to get it back from him. Pot Duality is a necessity because it adds raw consistency to the deck. There's no other real reason. As long as you get that first turn opening hand of ridiculousness, you'll be fine. And that's what Pot Duality helps with. 2 MST for back row hate, kind of obvious. Heavy Storm, Monster Reborn, and Dark Hole, again, obvious reasons, all staples. And a 1-for-1, which is needed pretty much for the Watt Hopper lockdown. It also lets you go for Trishula with an Effect Veiler, which is always funny because they don't expect it from a Watt deck. They'll be sitting pretty thinking they'll eventually draw into something, and you'll be like, oops, Trish. Congratulations. The trap lineup actually isn't as heavy, but it still is kind of for this format. You have 3 Threatening Roar because it's chainable to MST and Heavy Storm, and it really, really helps because you want to just protect them each turn. Pretty much, if you have 4 turns where you can attack directly with Watt Cobra, you win. Because you do 1,000 first, add another Watt Cobra, 2,000 after the both Watt Cobras. If they're still on the field, 3,000, which is a total of 6,000, then next turn game. So this is why you have cards like this. They may be a -1 at first, but they definitely help you protect your stuff. 2 Wobaku for the same reason. One thing with Wobaku, though, is that it lets you attack, which is why Threatening is kind of better. Another thing with this card, though, is I may be running Watt Squirrel in place of Watt Lemur, and Watt Squirrel basically lets me attack twice, but also can negate effects permanently, even in the graveyard. So if I attack a Sangan or a Raikou with Watt Squirrel, the effect is negated permanently. And on top of that, if it's something like Sangan, they won't get the search. If they run into a Scrap Dragon or Stardust, they will not be able to use the effects past that point. So Wobaku may be even better than Threatening, depending on if I decide to run Watt Squirrel. 2 Watt cancels is a necessity. 3 is too much because it can be a -1, but 2's been working just fine for me. Again, it's an extra solemn warning. Can't complain. And of course your Solemn Brigade, pretty standard in a deck like this. You want to stop your opponent's summons and card effects. And then lining up basically your back row protection / lockdown protection are Dark Bribe and Starlight Road. Starlight Road prevents against Dark Hole and Black Rose, which is a necessity if you're going to keep the Watt Hopper lockdown going. Dark Bribe starts Dark Hole and Heavy and stuff like that. I'm sorry. But anyway, that's the deck. Rate, comment, subscribe. PM me if you have any suggestions. And thanks for watching, YouTube.